This is the Power of OZmosis podcast, powered by the Vidwheel Creator Network. Hi, everyone. This is another Power of OZmosis video podcast powered by Vidwheel Creator Network. Today, I am joined by a very special guest, someone that I've already learned so much from, and even in just a short period of time, Najja Bouldin of the Phoenix Innovation Group and many others that I'll let him tell you more on. I'm excited, though, to talk today all things in color, kind of a picture of all things creativity, compassion, entrepreneurship, passion, and the list goes on, community and servant leadership. So without further ado, Najja, my brother, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. It's always an honor and pleasure to be featured, man. I swear.
Well-deserved too, man. Well-deserved. We were just kind of doing a little powwow prep before this. And, we were saying how this is really just conversation 3.0 for us. So tracing it all the way back to a shout out to New York business planning competition, which was kind of via University of Buffalo, the School of Management, Najja Bouldin with Blackstone Launchpad. We connected there.
Yes.
And I told you I had a surprise. I told you I had a little surprise going in. Well, this is what I think. I don't think I know part of why we've become good pals in a fast period of time, or what I'll call fast friends. I'm wearing the same shirt that when we first connected, and you called this out. So I'm in my 35 shirts or whatever I got, t-shirts that I pretty much only wear exclusively now. And I was like, what would resonate on this? And I'm like, intention, grab the shirt that Najja called out on our judging panel with the NYBPC. So again, enough from me. I'd love for you to educate the audience and even me more about you, your path to now, where you are now, and then where you're going.
Well, I think that, even bringing that up about your t-shirt from the competition and how providential that was, right? Like just being prepared and showing up and showing out, meeting you because you had this energy, you know what I mean? And you are a connector, right? Because I could be a little bit introverted, especially at events like that. You know what I mean? And you were, like your energy, and then how you were, so willing to help these young entrepreneurs with these ideas, and so ready for mentorship. I was like, man, I like this guy's energy. But about me, John, I guess I'm better with questions. I'm better with questions. Like, where should we start?
Yeah, let's do this then. Let's do this. And I'm sorry. So any good podcaster worth their salt does not ask 2 or 3 part questions. So that's real time accountability for myself. But let's talk about your path to now. So just an intro on you and what you're passionate about. But again, that path to now, as much as you're willing to share, I think our audience would really be inspired by who you are and what you represent.
Okay, I'm from the Lower East Side of Buffalo, Walden to be specific. I emerged from, those invisible badlands over there is what I like to call it. It's like I'm kind of jovial about it, but of course it's no joking matter. You're just from there. I come out of the drug epidemic, the war on poverty and all those other things, right? And that really shaped my mindset coming up out of that, right? Like I really come out of the streets. I stabbed in my head when I was like 14, 15. I've been shot at, been in all kind of situations, right? I'm from Walden, right? So you can't be from those certain areas of the city and, I don't know, and have nothing happen to you, right? So that helped me build resiliency early. Also helped me be creative because it was always trying to find something else, something better to do, something else going on, right? Because we didn't have too much to do. And I wasn't really like the basketball head. So the Lighthouse programs wasn't like for me, right? So I was like the kid from the hood that was kind of nerdy. I like comic books. I like building clubhouses. I like to do the stuff that I saw people doing on through that portal, which was television. It was like a portal to a galaxy far away, right? So I wanted to kind of do my best to create those kind of worlds where I was at, right? To be like, I'm that kind of kid too, right? Why we don't get represented that kind of way. So early on, I learned, that creativity was a means of like coping with my situation where I was at, right? Like we talking about a high time where almost everybody parents was on crack cocaine, you know what I'm saying, or some form of it, cocaine or something like that. I was born in 84. I'll be 37 next month. So, you know what I'm saying? It was
Happy birthday, my brother.
thanks, man. Thanks. So that was just like the time. That was just like what it was. So we didn't know anything different. We just saw the only way we did know anything different was from like television or comics or like something. Everybody had their little thing, right? So, fast forward from there, going to high school. Upon graduation, had a cousin from uptown. And uptown back then, up Bailey Kensington area, that was still considered like a really, really nice area, right? So my cousin had lived up there and he was getting ready to follow the footsteps of his father and go into the Air Force. And he was like, yo, you want to go with me? And we can go in a buddy program. I'm like, yeah, I ain't doing nothing else anyway. And at that time I had, like I was telling you, I'd been, brutalized by the police. I done been stabbed on. I done been through what I come, a kid from the urban center. So I knew I just didn't really want to sell drugs because it had consumed so much in my family already. And, my brothers had been shot. My one brother had died 3 times, once in the ambulance, twice on the operating table. So, thankful to ECMC and trauma doctors there that brought my brother back, my cousin who got shot in the neck. It was just real-time war going on where I was at, right? I was witnessing murder early, drug abuse early. So, that kind of like shaped my mindset throughout high school and my outlook on life. So if it wasn't for that intervention from my cousin saying like, yo, let's go into his buddy program, I don't know what I would have ended up into, right? So then even then I wasn't like totally convinced, but my recruiter was like, you got a better chance at dying here than you do in the United States Air Force. And then even if you do, at least it'd be for something, right? You could leave your family something, leave a legacy. So that really struck a chord with me, right? And then, this is 2001, 2002. So what's happening at the time. And enlisted, and I served in the Westpac, mainly in Hawaii. And, that changed my sight. You know what I mean? It was just, I guess that might have been my first encounter with maybe like the abundance of life, like, just the way in which that integration of how Hawaiians like choose to keep their tradition, right? All while practicing mainstream American cultures and adopting mainstream American cultures, right? Like, that's what first I learned about consumption, and the people who choose not to consume according to the rules of our society, they're considered to be homeless. Not the ones that's like mentally ill or anything like that, afflicted in any kind of way. I mean, just the people that just don't choose to play, right? I don't want to have the mortgage. I don't want to have the things, right? That was the first time I encountered that, because I used to have conversation with people that was considered to be vagrants on the beach, and these people were highly intellectual, right? And it was just like, man, I'm living right here. You know what I mean? Of course, everybody, like, I knew family members at the same time. I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but I knew family members at the same time that it was like, this person is perfectly fine. This is just how they choose to live. We do this. This person come to cookouts, whatever. But that was my introduction into that, right? So that kind of like, it definitely changed my sight. And the Air Force gave me core values: integrity first, service before self, excellence in all that we do. And I've adopted that, my lifelong. I've amended it in some ways, put creative excellence in the end, right? For that lifelong learning. But from there, it was just like, okay, where I saw an opportunity to really to take ownership of my life, because I had invested in the MGI Bill during basic training, so they could pay for college. And I knew I didn't want to be in the military for my life. And I had an opportunity called through Force Shaping, program called Force Shaping that the Air Force has, to get out early. Excuse me. And I took it. So I got 6 years on paper, but I actually only had to do 3.5 years. And then I came home. I still wanted to be somebody in the streets, you know what I'm saying? And that was my main purpose. I had a contract to be in Singapore for 2 years tax-free, but I wanted to be somebody in my neighborhood. I wanted to be somebody on the Lower East Side, right? Not to say that I already wasn't, not to say that I already was, but I really wanted to be somebody to the people that I grew with. So I got back, not really understanding economics, just thinking that because I'm a war veteran, decorated, I'd be able to get a job anywhere, right? I ended up selling Kirby vacuum cleaners and driving cabs. So it was just like, all the things that I didn't want to do, right? Like, because I had to pay rent. I was living in my stepbrother's house at the time and I had to pay rent. And I couldn't pay rent. It was, I couldn't find suitable work. I'm driving cabs on the late night. I'm trying to stay away from drug dealing, but here I am in my cab every single night, and every night I'm driving, there's somebody asking me for crack cocaine, right? So, in any marketing plan, is you a fool to not take advantage of whatever works for you, right? Mm-hmm. So, here I was doing this thing that I didn't like, but I ended up being really, really good at, and I just started to move my life up and elevate my life in a really quickly paced way. I went from at that time, living in that house, I was washing my clothes in the tub. I didn't have it. I had $2 to my name, went to the store, got me a carton of eggs and a loaf of bread, and I was short, but they knew me, so they let me come back. Right. And I'm a man of respect, and I have a level of dignity. So that was crushing me. Right. So it wasn't that I wasn't capable. It's just that it wasn't really that many opportunities that I was privy to here in Western New York. And even when so that, that struggle for resources means that somebody else is more apt to get the job than I will. Right. So that's where I learned that entrepreneurship would be the only way for me to be really independent. You hear my son.
What's his name?
Najja. Yes, sir.
Najja.
I'm talking to John. Say hello.
My mom has to pick me up.
Okay. When right now?
She's outside right now.
I am in the middle of working.
We can pause. It's all good. Hey Najja, what's up, buddy?
Hi.
How you doing?
You mind if we pause this real quick?
Yeah, pause it up. I'm gonna pause right here. And then
I'll be right back in 5.
Pause right in the middle. You're good. No problem. All right, brother. All right, brother. We're back. I learned. We're always learning. You talked about learning and unlearning and stuff like that earlier, but I'm always learning. I didn't realize I could pause the record. So, but we're back. You were talking about schooling and the elevation of your life and things like that. So we'll plug back into that if you're cool with that.
Yeah. So I started to exploit my MGI bill because I quickly saw that there was no way up. And the streets was like my only viable option to feel dignified and like a contributor in my community, right? That's like a very important factor in esteem, right? Like purpose. So I started back in school because I've always been a psych nerd. You know what I mean? What makes people tick? Again, my mom was afflicted by drugs and she left early on. So, I wanted to understand that psychology. I wanted to understand the psychology of people that were hurt. What causes them to do the things they do, right? Like, so if you imagine a herniated disc, it splashes out in different directions, right? Or a bulging disc. And that's like the same thing with a person who's impinged between pain and a hard situation. And I wanted to see how that, that would manifest and how to, integrate it or cope with it or what have you, because I had my own things, being obsessive compulsive and suffering from generalized anxiety disorder and post-traumatic stress disorder and complex compound PTSD and things like that. So I started to excel at ECC, shout out to ECC, and I was getting 4.0s, but I really didn't understand what that meant until I started getting recognition in school and getting invited to these honor societies, international honor societies and things like that. And then, coming from the hood, like, it's not to say school ain't really respected, but it ain't the thing that nobody is beating down the door to do. Right. So I was like, man, maybe it was easy. Maybe it was too easy. So I was like, maybe let me try for something higher. Let's go for UB, and went to UB and excelled. Of course, I was fraught with real life situations. Somebody had broken into my house and had to equate that. And my girlfriend at the time had a miscarriage. And I had to equate those things into academic success, right? Because I took a blow. My work was on my laptop that got stolen. That kind of took my energy. I had to cope with someone. We miscarried. That all took like a toll at that time. And then from there, I wanted to get into a graduate program, but the program that I wanted to get into required a GRE. And I felt like that was another way of keeping underserved folks out. So I started writing letters again, because I wrote letters before about the affirmative action box to get rid of it. Got some pushback from my elders. It was like, man, a lot of people fought and died for that box. So, but I was trying to boycott the GRE, and I was still in the streets, but I was far more successful than ever. I'm living in the loft. I'm having it my way. Got a cab company. I own a piece of property. Got a vending machine company. But none of it was really like a fully fledged success. It was success because I did it and was able to make it pop, but I had one foot in, one foot out. My focus was really on, street success, which is not getting pinched, which is, never rolling over or never looking soft or weak or whatever, you know what I'm saying? All those different things that come with, engage with, organized illicit activities. So my woman at the time, my partner had gotten pregnant, and I had ran into my who I learned was my aunt at that time at one of my birth mom's cookouts. She had these anniversary cookouts for being clean. And I saw Dr. Marsha Jackson there, and she was the VP over at ECC. So she remembered me from my rounds up there. And she was just like, wow, we family. What you doing now? What are you doing with that beautiful brain of yours? And I'm like, man, I'm looking around because all the men in my family, we were all engaged in the same things and very well. So I'm like, man, the family business just in a jocular fashion. She like looked down, and that kind of like made me look down because, it is what it is. And she like, man, we got to do something about that. And she was like, well, do you want to go back to school? I said, of course I do. I'm boycotting GRE system right now. And she was like, would you be willing to drop that and just focus on getting your master's? I said, of course I would. She was like, well, I'm gonna get you involved with my soror over at Buffalo State, and we're gonna get you going from there. What is it that you want to do? I said, I love psychology and I want to practice psychology. I really want to be able to come back and, help not just cure, but like integrate pain. Right? We always going to have change, which is going to spark pain, confusion, chaos, whatever. And we need to be able to learn how to integrate that, problem solve, and make it better, right? Even if we can't solve it, we need to know how to manage it. So I really wanted to be able to engage in that, and quickly learned that there was no programs that was available like that at Buffalo State. But it was another Dr. Jackson, the soror, Dr. Marsha Jackson, was like, we have this creativity program, which is incredible. You need to talk to them over there. And she was like, it's late, you're a late registrar, but if you rush over there and see if you can get you an advisor, you might be able to start. I went over there, got an advisor. My classes started on a Saturday and Sunday. I missed Saturday as a single father because my son was here at that point. I started late on Sunday. My guy, Roger Firestein, who ended up growing to be my friend, mentor, and what is it called when you work up under as an apprentice? Craftsman. Yeah, so I learned the game initially from him. He's taught everybody in the game in creativity. He's been in the game for about 42 years now, researching and leaving his mark in the game, theorizing, professor up at Buff State. Mike Fox, the same Mike Fox brought me in. And they just really concentrated a lot of energy on me, like in the incubator. They gave me a lot of sunlight, wind, good soil. And it was just like, yo, we see what you have with this naturally, and we want you to do what it is that you want to do with this. And I really had the latitude at that point to shape my philosophy for creativity. And I started working with Dr. Gerard Puccio and the capstone. And he was just like, that was part of the objective is to be able to write out your personal philosophy for creativity. And mine was that my creativity fashions me in an unassailable armor. And within that, I'm able to imagine all kind of ideas and options. And within those ideas, I'm able to find freedom. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, my lane from there. And then I ended up getting credentialized, where I got my advanced certificate in creativity, change leadership, creative thinking. And I got my master's in science and creativity. Got my company, opened my company while I was in apprenticeship, Phoenix Innovation Group, in 2016. And, since then I've worked in some extraordinary contracts. I'm academically published with NASA, yes, that blows my mind all the time. My affiliations with, titans of innovation in this area, No Innovation, Innovate Faster, the people that is dedicating their lives not only to practicing and making the money and creativity, but also the study and the spread of the spark of creativity.
Mm. Well, yeah, I'd be remiss to not first acknowledge, the strength it took to be vulnerable and candid and real and authentic that, that you really showed. And I'm just grateful to have spent the last, 15 minutes listening in, because, my inspiration levels are through the roof right now. I know I seem pretty chill, but, a lot of that I did not know candidly up until this point. Like I said at the beginning, this is conversation 3.0. So a lot of power and acknowledgement to you, brother, in that, it takes a lot, man. It takes a lot. People sometimes misperceive or think that, vulnerability is weakness, but it's really just the opposite. It takes the utmost of strength, mental muscle, to do that. So thank you first.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. I'm a firm believer in you can't ask for help with your hand closed. So like, how you gonna get help if you're rejecting everybody else's favor?
I mean, and you talked about providence and love. Law of attraction kind of comes out of that, and destiny, manifestation, kind of things that we energize in our first conversation a couple of weeks ago. Like I said, I put a LinkedIn post that day for how do you get from 30 minutes to 90 minutes. Man.
I was grateful for that. Thanks.
I mean, I'm grateful for you and I appreciate that. And it's like, I basically did a Q&A. I said, how do you go from a 30-minute conversation to 90? And then, the answer piece. And so anyway, the point is providence, universal energy, et cetera. I mean, there couldn't be more of a sign in that in my day-to-day leading up to right now, the things that I was listening to, what I've already done, who I've talked to. And so a couple of things come out of my mind, hit my mind, I should say, Najja, when listening to your origin story, right? The genesis of who Najja Bouldin is here today in mid-May 2021. And a couple things. There's the discipline first that I think of and the studentry of life, right? To be a student, it requires discipline. But also then the endurance also, too. And so I had this thought in my brain earlier before we even started recording that, I was just thinking about what I know of you thus far. And this phrase to me came to mind. It was, you're a masterpiece of a human, from what I already know. And it's true. And so the point of all this, for sure. And the point of all this, I've used this before, back massaging, but it's with good reason, is to then ask you, I'm curious to know from you your relationship and views on those couple characteristics, right? So discipline and endurance, and really how they then relate to being a student and to being a disciple of kind of discipline. And so a lot of there. So let's just jump to, what did it take? I want to arm our audience that's listening and watching. I want them to hear from you, like what you used, if as we sit here and speak, to keep yourself going, right? It's one of my favorite things, keep going. And that can mean a lot of things. So what did you use, Najja, to keep yourself going through your formative years and even through today, where there's a lot of highs and lows, peaks and valleys through entrepreneurship and just through life in general? So what keeps you going, brother?
Well, like it's just like those elements that come from my culture, right? Like some of those elements, but they're not limited to hustling first and foremost. Being the biggest and imagining and that daring to be the biggest, and then being a good fighter, where everybody wanted to be a good fighter. Everybody wanted to know that if you came and messed with me, for lack of better terms, you was going to get your ass whooped. Right. So I wanted to kind of transmute that energy into making all my dreams come true. First and foremost, freedom. That freedom of thought, because there was a lot of days that I felt like a slave to what I was thinking, where I come from.
Your mind, brother. It's your brain, right?
Yes. And the processes of, right? Like I felt like I was relegated to certain things, and that was just a part of it. But there was this willful endurance of my imagination, my psyche, that was just like, no, right? Like, and I liken that to Harriet Tubman, that when she slept and she dreamt and she woke up, she would always say that I'm not meant to live like this, right? I'm meant to be free, right? So I wanted to know, I became very astute to what would free me. And education was like the thing that was like overwhelmingly, like, it was just gross. It was just coming.
Can I ask you, did you find yourself borderline obsessed with that? I know that word sometimes can get thrown around with the greats. Like for me, I will call myself out as to be obsessed with self-actualizing and deploying empathy and community servant leadership. I'm obsessed. Would you call it what your journey looked like? Was it obsession almost to, like you said?
Most definitely, man. I'm obsessive compulsive. It's transmuting the energy into something that I could use, right? Integrating it into my life, that willful endurance, right? I'm willing to get beat up for this. It's like jujitsu, like that mental chess. I'm willing to get beat for this. And disciplining myself was more so like what I tell my college students. Decide a discipline. Don't decide on a major. Decide on a discipline. Let's talk about what your dreams are. And let's talk about what that discipline is, like with the value of that in the mainstream economy, right? You could say, I just love blowing up balloons, right? But what is the value of that in mainstream economy? You got Balloon Masters that's still open over there in the Ogden Gingins area, right? And I didn't even know that. I'm freestyling because I seen it the other day, right? But you could be a balloon, what is that? The clowns that do the balloon things or whatever, right? You can make money doing almost whatever in our economy, as long as you can market it. So I always ask, well, what is it that you want to do? What do you clearly see yourself doing? And let's discipline ourselves. Let's align ourselves with a discipline, right? Whether it be biology, chemistry, political science, law science, medical science, creativity, whatever. Let's align ourselves with a discipline and find our ways of mining out and sculpting out our vision. How might we be able to use this? Even with our peers, our friendships, colleagues. How might I see myself? You shouldn't have no arguments because there's nothing that's personal, right? It's all business. So how might I be able to serve you and vice versa, right? We all trying to get somewhere, and we need that in our community because we have to kind of change that thought of dissociation when it comes to one another, right? We see one another and be like, it's whatever, right? I want it to be understood that when I see you, it's Ubuntu. I am because we are. So of course you can get some of this. So let's get it. You know what I mean?
Let's go, man. You inspired me in real time when we talked about that. It's hard to see. Right here, brother. No future without forgiveness. I just started getting back into this, man, and I'm sorry to interrupt or overspeak, but
fine.
This book here for our watchers and listeners, Desmond Tutu, No Future Without Forgiveness. It's something in Conversation 1.0, Najja, that we had, where you reignited that concept to me, that word, right? I am, because we are. And so, Doc Rivers put that together with the Boston Celtics when they won in 2008, the NBA championship. And I remember was fascinated. It was the first time I'd ever heard of it when I learned through Doc Rivers. And so before I forget to it, and so beautiful, I'm glad you brought it back to that, man. I'm glad you brought it back to that. But I wanted to say one thing. Again, it's like let's arm the audience with as much as we can. And you've already done so much just by tracing your origin story. But you talked, and let's wireframe this out together, right? So you talked this decision, discipline, and dream. Something that it's not that you've developed this, and maybe you have, but it stuck with me when you said that. I think you first must make a decision on the discipline that you're going to then select so that you can achieve your dreams. Does that sound like something that, and again, it's not that it's formalized, but it could be here in this moment that our listeners and watchers get excited about?
Most definitely, but I like to say discerning instead of decision, right? Because it requires clarity, right? You can't just jump. You can make a decision, but it could be the wrong decision for you, or you could be solving the wrong problem. So we want to make sure that you're clear on what it is that you want to do, and then we want to we want to fight. We want to throw all our energy at that. We want to go and slay that dragon. And, we don't want to hurt the dragons, but we want to go and slay the dragon and bring that. Yeah. We want to bring that red ochre. We want to bring that good blood back to the community, man, and revitalize and revivify. Make it work, make it pop.
That's so good, brother. And we've danced around, and not danced around, but we've talked about, we've ruminated in learning. And I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but it's something that's been top of mind for me even today. I just put out a second LinkedIn post. It's like the first time I've done that. I posted in the morning, and then I posted again because I had to, and I knew where I was headed to shoot with you today virtually. So I'm curious to get your take. And I know we got to watch time a little bit. I'll call that out to the audience, but in the last 5 or so minutes, let's unpack. I would love to hear from you. Just here in this first question is learning and unlearning, right? So those are two incredibly important skills, but most of the discussion is around learning. Be curious to hear briefly what you think about learning, but then also the unlearning piece, if you've got a stance on that.
Okay, well, with learning, let's look at that first. For me, learning is lifelong, right? But learning is only the governor to learning, right? Like if you got a go-kart, there's a governor on the back of a go-kart. When you go-kart racing, you can reach your hand back there and hit that governor, and you take off and go faster, right?
Right there, brother. David Goggins, he talks about that. Sorry, again,
No worries. We call that ad-libbing, man, in the culture. That means you just understand, you with me. So we want to be able to hit that governor with learning, to be able to be clear and make the most of our subconscious, because our subconscious is always bringing in information anyway. So we want to be able to be conscious of that and make the most of it. And the easiest hack for that is your attitude, right? Approaching everything with a very open, very positive and upbeat attitude, deferring judgment, right? That's the key to creative thinking. That's the seed of creative thinking, deferring judgment, being open, right?
Shout out to Beth Miller.
Yeah. Creative Education Foundation, right? And shout out to Creativity and Education with Cindy Burnett. So those are my people. But so you want to, like we talked about with Professor Emeritus Ruth Noller, right? You want to be able to use your attitude. Your creativity is a function of your attitude. So you want to
that formula, brother. Tell the audience that formula, please.
C equals F of A multiplied by KIE. And that breaks down to creativity is equal to the function of your attitude multiplied by your knowledge, imagination, and evaluation. And I'd be remiss if I mentioned that without saying that came from Dr. Ruth Noller, Professor Emeritus, math extraordinary, creativity dynamo, who was upset with watching her colleagues be mesmerized by the problems that they were able to conjure. She wanted them to be mesmerized by solutions. And she wanted to make creativity bite-sized for them, something that they could understand. And that really sat with me. It made me understand it a lot better. And I wanted to be able to share that with other people. It's just that, if you approach anything with a dampened attitude or a negative attitude, and what we say in our practice over here at Phoenix Innovation Group, with your funky ass attitude, to solidify that heuristic, right? Then your creative output is going to be very, very low. You know what I'm saying? But if you approach things with positivity and you use that rudder to go up, man, it's whatever. We're going to make it pop. Whatever it is, we're going to make this thing happen. I'm going to be resourceful. I'm going to dig into my experience. I'm going to be imaginative. I can do it big. You know what I'm saying? And I got knowledge. I done been through some things. You know what I'm saying? I got a great evaluation. You know what I mean? When I come up to this, I see it. We can do this. I give it to my son. If he fall, man, you did great. You can cry. You can get up, hug me. We're going to cry and all that. But why did you, what happened? Why did you cry? Oh, I got scared. You see what I'm saying? So, and then bridging that into unlearning is setting up solid beliefs, right? Even if you have to trace back the red thread to things that you disbelieve. I have a tool called D-Veil Ebb, right? And if you look at D-Veil Ebb in the mirror and you take away a B, it says believed, right? So we want to look at those things that you believe and those things that you currently serve or service that you don't currently believe, but it's just a part of your tradition and custom, right? We want to start tracking and measuring those things. And we want to start seeing, does it really serve you to be this way?
Constructs and norms, right? Constructs and status quo almost, right? Like we've done it this way forever, so it's fine.
This is the way that it has to be done. It's a fixed method. And it's not, right? So we want to be able to look at that and be like, is that yours? Or did that come from the ether somewhere outside of you, right? If it's yours, then how does it serve you? Because if it doesn't serve you, then likely it's not yours and you fighting for something that isn't yours and you just don't want to be wrong.
You hear that, audience? Ask yourself, whatever decisions you're going to make, ask yourself, whether it's in your head, out loud, whatever it is, does this serve me? Will this serve me? And use objectivity and neutrality to answer. Don't try to rationalize, right? Not to say don't. Do your best to not rationalize what you may want to do. Do what you need to do, right? It's that, Najja, I got a thing. I was driving one time months ago. I had left blinker on to go to Tim Hortons. No offense to Tim Hortons. All right, let's call it a donut shop for, a donut, a panini, and a coffee. And I had the right arrow. I could have hit the right arrow, but there was a healthy eatery on the right. And I was sitting there in traffic waiting for cross traffic. I'm sitting there and I got the left on to go to Tim Hortons. And I'm like, does this serve me? Does this serve me? It just doesn't. Right arrow, go get the healthy stuff. Let's go.
There you go, right? But even then, you ain't punish yourself. Some people might hear this and they might get into a punishment mode. And for that, I just say, I tell them to stay neutral and use it might, right? So even if you say, does it serve me? You may be like, well, it might. Well, how might it serve you? Right. And then we might look at, we measure the potentials from there, but it's always, I think it's important. I won't say always. It's important to be evaluating your approach as often as possible.
Yeah. In real time, brother, man. Yeah. Like right now, even I know there's things I've done well in this and there's things I could do better. Okay. And I'll unpack that after. I'll get my notes out. I'll ruminate on it. And that's that. And honestly, even part of it was, starting this thing a little sooner. So we had more time to talk. But again, this is the first of many. And so I guess in a sense, I'm going to tie it abruptly. So sorry, audience. And Najja, thanks for your understanding in advance.
No worries, man. Thank you.
I know you're moving and shaking, man. You're creating impact in real time, right?
Hopefully, I was able to pop in as much as we possibly can.
You did, man.
One more thing is the pluses, right? Please. You just said you're gonna be ruminating. So when you do ruminate, look at the pluses first. Just be like, you did good, right? We got it done. You wanted to get it done. I had to go get my son last minute because he was like, I wanted to come back.
I had to eat late lunch. I was pounding a late lunch while you were sitting there before we hit recording.
Didn't choke. There
you go.
I didn't fall. I didn't get hit by a car, and I had to usher my son's bike. So nobody called the police and was like, he's stealing a bike or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? So you got to look at the positives, right? The positives is we was able to get this, kick it off. We really care about the Buffalo community. We really care about the birth and the renaissance of what's getting ready to happen next. Highly contributive, and we're gonna go from there, right? So, that's a good start, and then we can get into the what ifs later. We can get into concerns later on when our spirit is up, our approach is already positive.
That's huge. And you can liken that just one last to be additive to that is that, call it physical fitness. And it's been a minute, right? Any listeners or watchers who haven't had a chance to get into it or avoid it, whatever it may be, start small, start incremental. Yeah. You want to go run 5 miles and you haven't run in 6 months? Well, guess what? Go walk a couple miles, go walk or go run a quarter mile. And then that way you start to build yourself up into that positive light of like, cool, man, I'm checking some boxes and I did it and I'm seeing progress. And because then what happens a lot of times, it seems like, again, without generalizing, is that you go right for that 5 miles after 6 months. And what do? You bang yourself up. You got shin splints, you got problems, and guess what? No one wants to run after that. Why would you want to subject yourself to that? No one does. So if you start small, and again, if you just find ways to keep going, no matter what that looks like you said, defer judgment, brother, defer judgment on yourself. Start with yourself. Defer that until after you've given a little bit of time for a body of work to develop. And then do that look back, that retroactive, that introspective type thing. So many golden nuggets, brother. And again, acknowledgement big time to you on sharing your story, because that in and of itself inherently was inspiring to hear where you've been, where you've gone, where you are. And I also didn't thank you for your service. I know I have before, but I would be remiss not to do it again.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you. And with books like this, and I just actually installed this bookshelf It looks pretty
It looks good, man. It looks really good.
Pretty slick. We got a lot of good ones back here.
Oh my goodness, that's one of the best.
Yeah, The Alchemist. I mean, I got the list will go on. Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, the modern version. I mean, the list goes on and on. And anyway, we could talk all day on this, but I just want to say thank you again to you for being here. Where do we find you, by the way? And again, this is the first of, I'm sure, many. So where do we find you?
LinkedIn. That's where I spend most of my time until I get an intern or social media marketer that's willing to work with us at Phoenix Innovation Group to dominate a campaign on any other platform, including LinkedIn. You can find me around the Buffalo community, first and foremost. You can find me on my podcast, Win with the Phoenix. It's all these kind of mental workouts where we talk about stuff like this. You know, the quickest way to eat an elephant is bit by bit. You know that it's better to tame a tiger than it is to make a pussycat wild. We talk about all those kind of things on there. Highly unorthodox, unconventional hacks, and it's explicit, but it's problem solving in real form. And when you're in a bear trap, you don't care about somebody's language; you care about getting out. So, you know what I mean?
That's so, and the link though, I'll get links from you if I don't already have them. But in the show notes, listeners and watchers are, and I haven't said this yet, but I'll say it, are millions of listeners and watchers.
That's
right? Law of attraction, manifest it, right?
You're right.
But all in the name of spreading great, just fantastic, actionable, resonant, powerful, relevant insights from people like yourself, Najja. That's the whole goal. It's not about how many likes and comments and any of that. It's about, did we create impact in real time for someone who listened to this, watched this? And I'm telling you, it's really energizing to see. Even just last week, I put something out. I got a couple calls, voicemails, texts, some social media love. And it's not about the social media love or any of that. It's that I know that at least one, the power of one, brother, if it's one person who's impacted in a positive way, there's a ripple effect that then will lead into others.
Go.
Let's go.
When there's one person that rocks with you, it's like, let's.
That's it.
Go.
That's it, man. It's all it takes, right? If it's zero, there's no momentum, there's no start, there's no spark, there's no lightning bolt, which you see all over my media. But if you get one, the power of one, man, the ripple effects that it can create. So with that said, a lot of good ripple effects here, a lot of gold. My gratitude, and always gratitude to Vidwheel Creator Network, my podcast partner setup. This is the first of several. I'm certain of that. We'll look for even an in-person sometime. But for now, thanks everyone for watching. Najja Bouldin, Phoenix Innovation Group.
Peace.
OZmosis. Ubuntu. I am because we are. Keep going.
Most
Let's
definitely.
go. Take care, everyone. Thank you.